Good evening, everyone. This April 23rd, 2015 regular number 18 of the Fairfax County School Board will now come to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, a moment of silence, and the performance of the national anthem by the Freedom Hill Elementary School singers under the direction of Gretchen Lechty Lynch. Thank you so much, Freedom Hill Singers. We really appreciate you being here. Parents, we appreciate you sharing your beautiful and talented children with us. Thank you for coming out this evening.
Tammy.
Yes, Miss Reed.
I was backstage and I had a chance to talk to the kids a little bit, and I said, "Are you nervous or excited?" And I think it was a little bit of both, but they were just absolutely tremendous. And again, I also wanted to thank all the families who came out tonight to cheer on their kids and take pictures. This is just one example of one of the many arts programs that thrives in Fairfax County. Thank you.
Next on our agenda is our certification of our closed meeting. In order to comply with Section 2.2-3712D of the Code of Virginia, it is necessary for the board to certify that since the Fairfax County School Board convened a closed meeting on April 23, 2015, to the best of each member's knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements and only such public business matters as were identified in the motion convening the closed meeting were heard, discussed, or considered by the board during the closed meeting. Do I have a motion? I'm looking at everyone. Ms. Strauss, seconded by Ms. Evans. All those in favor? That is unanimous. Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry. Moon, Reed, Hynes, Smith, Darnett, Koufax, Velkov, McLaughlin, Storck, Strauss, Evans. Abstaining? Ms. Schultz. Thank you. Motion passes. A few announcements before we begin tonight's meeting. Mr. McElveen is absent tonight, and he is out of the country. He will be back with us soon. If you would like to review a copy of the agenda and any agenda item that is being discussed tonight, that information is on the table by the auditorium entrance. You may access tonight's agenda and related meeting documents by going to the FCPS website, selecting School Board, and then Upcoming Meetings and Agendas. The meeting is also being streamed in the FCPS website homepage. Click on Watch School Board Live. I ask you to please turn off or silence your cell phones, and I will now call on Mr. Lateef, our student representative, for announcements.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Quite a few announcements tonight. We will be recognizing Teacher Appreciation Week from May 4 through the 8th. Every day, over 15,000 teachers in Fairfax County Public Schools demonstrate their personal and professional dedication to providing an excellent education for the children in our community. Our teachers are committed to ensuring that all children develop their full potentials for academic achievement. Teachers are influential in fostering in their students both helpful self-concepts and a sense of civic responsibility. Fairfax County Public Schools values their skills, creativity, and professionalism that characterize our teachers. We will also be recognizing Asian and Pacific American Heritage Month during the month of May. Americans of Asian and Pacific ancestry have made significant contributions to the history and development of the United States in many fields of endeavor, such as science, commerce, the arts, and the humanities. The Fairfax County School Board recognizes that an understanding of these contributions should be an integral part of the year-round education of all students. Since 1992, the President of the United States has proclaimed May to be Asian and Pacific American Heritage Month and has chosen this month to pay tribute to the generations of Asian and Pacific Islanders who have enriched America's history and are instrumental in its future success. And on May the 6th, we will be recognizing School Nurse Day. School Nurse Day was established in 1972 to foster a better understanding of the role of school nurses in the educational setting. This annual event recognizes the contributions that school nurses play every day to improve the health and success of our nation's children. This year's theme, quote, "The School Nurse, Caring for Others, Caring for Ourselves," reflects the significant role that school nurses have in healthcare in their communities as well as in modeling health and resiliency. School nursing is a specialized practice of professional nursing that advances the health and well-being of students and is an integral part of a quality school health program. School nurses promote health, safety, prevention, and wellness, intervene with actual and potential health problems, and provide case management services. They're an invaluable bridge connecting healthcare providers, public health, and families. The school system works closely with the Fairfax County Health Department to provide quality services to the children of Fairfax County Public Schools and recognizes May 6th as School Nurse Day in Fairfax County. We also would like to welcome some Boy Scouts in the audience. Joining us from Troop 50, based out of Annandale, he is working on his citizenship in the Community Merit Badge. Welcome. And we are happy tonight to have a rather large contingent of Boy Scouts from Troop 1532, also based in Annandale, and they are all working on their citizenship in the Community Merit Badge. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you. Next, moving on to agenda item number 2.04, a resolution supporting Parents Who Host Lose the Most campaign, and I call on Mr. Storck.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair. It is always an honor to do this on an annual basis, and it's also, maybe most importantly, one of the most critical things we do on an annual basis, which is to remind everyone about truly the perils of drinking, particularly by youth, underage youth, because they frankly don't know how to do it, and when they do it, it ends many times in catastrophe and really serious injury to those around you. And there's a number of those issues, and this time of year in particular, I always think about it because I've been associated with a high school that lost some wonderful students as a result of a binge of drinking right around graduation time. And as we approach graduation time, we need to keep focused on that and be conscious of the fact that that drinking particularly can be very harmful and cause many problems for not only the students and children who are doing that, but for the parents and loved ones around them. We have a couple champions in our midst that I want to bring up front here because they've been championing this resolution and championing really the education process, which is so essential to minimizing drinking, particularly by underage youth. And if Sarah Freund and Diane Eckert could please come up. Sarah Freund's the executive director, and Diane Eckert is the deputy director of the United Prevention Coalition. Please come up to the podium. Thank you. And these are truly my good friends of many, many years, and mostly, and I would say most essentially, great friends of Fairfax County and Fairfax County efforts to help educate all of us about how to be responsible parents and make sure that students aren't drinking, because we know it, particularly on an underage basis, leads to serious consequences. So if you would listen while we read this resolution and really honor the work that you've done really all year and for so many years. And I know we have many students as well that have been part of the United Prevention Coalition. And if there are any in the audience, maybe they could come up and join you. That would be wonderful. I know we have some students who represent student groups at some of the high schools. That would be awesome. And maybe if you could identify yourself, and then I'll read the resolution. Maybe just say your name. Yes.
Hello, my name is Virginia Sun. I'm a junior at Thomas Jefferson High School.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Angel Delgado, and I'm a senior at McLean High School.
Excellent. Well, thank you both for being here. Whereas underage youth say they can easily get alcohol from family and friends, even though it is illegal in Virginia for a person under the age of 21 to consume or possess alcohol, and it is illegal for an adult to provide alcohol to a person under the age of 21. And whereas alcohol is the most commonly used illegal drug by Fairfax County students, and underage alcohol use is associated with other drug use, traffic crashes and fatalities, rape, depression, suicide, educational failure, violence, and gang involvement. And whereas the 2013-2014 Fairfax County Youth Survey reported that 36% of high school seniors and 18% of 10th graders had consumed alcohol in the last 30 days, and maybe more importantly, and 19% of seniors had engaged in binge drinking in the last 2 weeks. Whereas the United Prevention Coalition of Fairfax County is an independent nonprofit organization of over 60 collaborative partners, including school officials, county government agencies, concerned residents, students, and community groups, and has been instrumental in addressing underage drinking and binge drinking, and is now in its 9th year of a campaign known as Parents Who Host, Lose the Most, Don't Be a Party to Binge Teenage Drinking, to educate parents and to increase awareness of and compliance with Virginia underage drinking laws. And whereas prevention efforts, including parents talking with their teens and modeling appropriate behavior, are critical, particularly during prom and graduation season. Now therefore be it resolved that the Fairfax County School Board supports the United Prevention Coalition of Fairfax County and recognizes the month of May 2015 as Parents Who Host, Lose the Most month in Fairfax County. I so move.
Seconded by Ms. Evans. All those in favor? The vote is unanimous with Mr. McElveen absent.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. And I just wanted to, first off, show some of the information, then we'll come up and get some pictures, and then I'll email me, have a moment to say something. This is some of the information, the literature that's sent out, and these are available, I know, online, as well as I know they have copies of it here. It does matter, parents, how you talk with your teen. It does matter that you share with them and that you exclude them from any adult parties, because it's too early, it's too premature. We want to keep them safe. We want to keep them here a long time. Thank you. Maybe we can all come up for pictures? All right, thank you.
Youth speak much more eloquently than we do, and they are heard by their peers. And this particular group of students has been in our classrooms doing teaching and mentoring more than any group that we've had. We're very proud of them.
Thank you, Chairman Fairfax and board members, for allowing me this opportunity to speak about the Unified Prevention Coalition of Fairfax County and its youth group, or youth council, excuse me. My name is Angel Delgado, and as I mentioned before, I am a senior at McLean High School and an active member of UPC's Youth Council. I'd like to talk about the Parents Who Host Lose the Most campaign, and the UPC's Parents Who Host Lose the Most public awareness campaign is beginning its 9th year with support from country government and FCPS. As students, we know it is important to recognize the need for parents to supervise teen parties in their homes and not allow underage drinking. By providing a non-emergency phone number on the Parents Who Host banners and fact cards, UPC hopes to increase the partnership between parents and the police in keeping teens alcohol-free. Youth Council members provide invaluable perspectives when participating in UPC campaigns or when implementing projects that we develop. Here's a brief summary of some of our activities this year. First, we worked with the Fairfax County Park Authority and Live Healthy Fairfax to encourage smoke-free play areas throughout county parks by participating in park cleanups at Burke Lake and Nottoway parks. We also created and implemented a tobacco facts game used by children in the Facets after-school program. We thank you for joining this effort by designating all FCPS school playground and athletic fields smoke-free. Last fall, the Youth Council created a video on why we oppose marijuana legalization. The link to the video was sent to Northern Virginia delegates and senators along with a letter explaining our concerns. We know that marijuana use is viewed by some of our peers as a safe drug, which it is not, and that marijuana and alcohol are often combined initially, masking the depressive effects of alcohol. Finally, I want to note that Youth Council members will be working in June with 6th grade students at 2 elementary schools when we pilot a program teaching them refusal skills and from skits that we have created. We are excited about being role models to younger students. As youth leaders and mentors, we see and hear far too much about alcohol, tobacco, and marijuana use. We believe we can make a difference and want to see a change in our generation when it comes to these issues. We want parents to join us in supporting alcohol, tobacco, and marijuana-free lives for their students. Thank you for this opportunity to speak with you. I'll now turn this over to Virginia Sun.
Thank you, Angel. Good afternoon. My name is Virginia Sun, and I'm a junior at Thomas Jefferson High School. I would like to update you on a few additional activities that the Youth Council has been implementing this year. Last July, the Unified Prevention Coalition sent 8 students and an adult mentor to a week-long alcohol and drug abuse prevention leadership conference. At this conference, students listened to motivational speakers, met students from all across the state, and created prevention plans for implementation during this school year. The plan Angel just mentioned right before me to teach refusal skills to 6th graders was created by Youth Council members at this conference. Furthermore, the Youth Council and UPC staff are so excited to share with you our pilot Stress Less, Be Your Best Week at Holmes Middle School. This project, which is taking place this week, was designed by students for students. This week has included a nutrition health fair attended by all 981 students, high school students sharing valuable time management skills, and discussions on the importance of hobbies, sports, and time with family and friends. Please see the student tips and materials we have provided for you. Stress Less Week was created because of our deep concern about the impact of stress on students and how it can lead to substance abuse and depression. Youth Council students believe that education about managing stress needs to start at a much younger time than high school. In addition, during this week, UPC and the Holmes Middle School Parent Resource Center sponsored a program for parents called Keeping You and Your Teen Calm, Helping Your Child Manage Stress. The Youth Council thanks Dr. Pamas, Mrs. Astro, the teachers and staff at Holmes Middle School for doing everything to make this week a success. Furthermore, Fairfax Falls Church Community Services Board has also been generous enough to provide a grant, which supported both Stress Less Be Your Best Week this week and the 6th grade refusal skills projects that we'll be implementing later in June. We are also proud to announce that Youth Council has just won, for the second year in a row, the $1,000 First Place Geico Award from the Washington Regional Alcohol Program. We are collaborating directly with both our county and state partners and welcome partnerships to ensure community-based efforts truly involve the community. We hope that parents know how much they influence our choices and that their expectations are very important to us. We want to make the right decisions to teach students how to deal with stress. Members of our Youth Council, high school students like Angel and me, seek to be role models for our peers and younger students so that we can live healthy, drug-free lives. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your time. Our students this year, as I said, have been inspiring with their activities and their focus to all of us. They really understand the need to work with younger students and to be role models. I just want to note to you that Angel showed up on a very cold spring day to help the Facet students go through the park on a scavenger hunt, and they simply adored him. These students have been in homeschool all week long. The Stress Less Week, we hope, will be a model that other schools can implement. Thank you.
Might I just add, students, you were wonderful. Thank you so much. It's so obvious that the future's in very good hands, isn't it? With the wonderful leadership that we have in young people today, and willing to dedicate and give of their time to support and encourage other young people in such positive ways. So we're very impressed and proud that you're part of FCPS, and thank you for your work in this important area.
Thank you so much. We really do appreciate you coming here. You are inspirational to us. Thank you. Next on our agenda is agenda item 2.05, Recognition of Better Hearing and Speech Month, and I call on Mr. Velkoff.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Since 1927, the American Speech Language Hearing Association, ASHA, has celebrated Better Hearing and Speech Month every year in May. The theme this year is Early Intervention Counts, a campaign to make people aware of the warning signs of speech, language, and hearing problems and the positive effect that early intervention can have to reverse and even prevent them. This annual event provides opportunities to promote services that can improve the quality of life for those who experience problems with speaking and listening. An estimated 42 million people have communication disorders, and they impact 1 in 10 families, and I and members of my extended family are among them. Currently, Fairfax County Public Schools provide speech and language services to more than 10,000 students. Audiologists and special education teachers also serve more than 500 deaf and hard of hearing students in class-based programs via base school itinerant services and in early childhood programs. FCPS annually observes and celebrates Better Hearing and Speech Month and encourages all citizens in our community to recognize the efforts, dedication, and skills of the speech-language clinicians, audiologists, and teachers of students who are deaf and hard of hearing. And so with that, I would like to invite everybody in the audience involved with speech and hearing to please come forward for a photograph with the school board.
Ms. Schultz would like to say something.
Before every clinician leaves, I do want to thank, as a board member who has a child who has received speech and language services from the earliest days through both the county before he qualified to be in Fairfax County Public Schools, through the FCPS Cat B preschool program, up until a couple of weeks ago on continuing IEP services. I'm really grateful both as a board member for what you do for our students, but also as a parent. Thank you.
Our next agenda item is agenda item 2.06. And before I call on Ms. Hynes for recognition of School Nutrition Employee Week, I would like to acknowledge Ms. Penny McConnell, Director of the Office of Food and Nutrition Services, who's retiring at the end of this school year after 50 years of service to FCPS. Penny's a little shy, as you can see, but Penny, we are going to have another opportunity to honor you this year. But tonight, we just wanted, with all of your employees here before you, we wanted to recognize your service and thank you for those many, many years. We do appreciate you. And now I call on Ms. Hynes.
Thank you. Yeah, I don't think we can recognize 50 years of service to the school system often enough, so I'm glad we'll have another opportunity. As I look out, I see lots of cheerful, bright pink shirts, and it makes me so happy. And you all are people who I guess have been up since before dark this morning and preparing and serving tens of thousands of breakfasts and lunches. And as someone who has prepared breakfast and lunch for just 2 children, I am just amazed at what you do every day. And you are the smiling face in the lunchroom for a lot of children. And I've taught in elementary school. I know the very important role you play in just the life of a school. So thank you so much for being here and for all that you do. I have a recognition to read. Caring, trained, thoughtful, professional, dedicated. These are just a few words that describe today's school nutrition professional. School nutrition employees in Fairfax County Public Schools demonstrate daily their professional commitment to providing students with nutritious menu choices that reflect current research and meet the dietary guidelines for Americans, which is not easy to do. School nutrition employees must balance many roles and follow numerous federal, state, and local regulations to ensure safe and healthy meals are available in schools. They are trained sanitation and food safety experts and must manage financially self-sufficient programs. School nutrition professionals also provide nutrition education to students as well as healthy catering services to the community. They use their creativity to make the cafeteria a fun and welcoming place all year long and perform their jobs each day because they care passionately about the children they serve. FCPS school nutrition employees are committed to imparting food and nutrition knowledge and skills to students, using the school cafeteria as the nutrition laboratory, and are influential in preparing students to learn. I'd like to invite all of our wonderful school nutrition people to come down front and get a picture with us. Oh, sorry. Actually, come up to the stage. There's so many of you. Come on around to the stage.
Are we supposed to be wearing that? Go ahead. Okay.
The next order of business. The next order of business is citizen participation. Speakers are requested to limit their remarks to not more than 3 minutes and to provide at least 16 copies of their presentation for distribution to the board. The school board will not hear statements involving issues that have been scheduled for public hearings, such as capital improvement program, budget and boundaries, or personal attacks on any person. Complaints regarding individual students or school-based employees should be directed to the appropriate school principal or other school official. If the concern is a group concern, please consider appointing a spokesperson, and while the spokesperson is speaking, those in support may stand to show their support. Tonight, 11 citizens have signed up to address the school board: Stephen Greenberg, Tina Williams, Bob Marshall, Andrea Laverty, Adam Hyatt, Chris Harrell, Robert Rigby Jr., Manny Solon, Karen Solon, George Becerra, and David LaRock. Mr. Greenberg.
Dr. Garza, Chairman Darren Kofax, esteemed school board members and renowned Mr. Lateef. My name is Steve Greenberg. I'm president of the Fairfax County Federation of Teachers. I represent 4,500 educators who care. I'll be speaking tonight on agenda item 4.01, goal 2 and 3. First of all, I'd like to thank Mr. Kevin Sills, who presented at our member workshop today and assisted our teachers in learning more about their rights and due process. Considering how understaffed HR is currently, his efforts in making the time today impressed us. In fact, this entire school system is on the verge of losing its ability to take care of its employees and its students properly, whether it's in terms of keeping reasonable class size, pay for employees, or supports for students. Our county supervisors and our state officials are to blame for all of this. The fact that they would assert they care about kids and teachers, then leave them hang out to dry, it's despicable. I think I saw there might be some state delegates here tonight, and I hope they've come to help us with our funding as opposed to posture intolerance before elections. Word out to all politicians. You come into this room and you use this microphone between now and November, I'm going to be waiting for you. I am joined tonight, oh, by the way, let me add, FCFT absolutely, completely supports the non-discrimination changes that you have on the table and would appreciate you passing those. I told you. I'm joined tonight by the leaders of the FCFT Sustainability Committee who will address you next as I reflect upon all of their great work over the past few years and pondered their wonderful ideas and proposals for making our schools more eco-friendly and our students healthier. I actually became a little depressed. To think that our FCPS educators and students are limited in reaching their potential, that troubled me. To know that our teachers can't make learning as productive and exciting as they'd like or be able to provide those important special opportunities for our students, all due to a lack of funding, that's devastating. As you listen to the passion and conviction of the educators tonight, understanding how much they care for our students and how much they care about being great teachers, remember this, they have options. They can work elsewhere. Of course, teachers can also stay here in FCPS and make a point of holding those responsible for our financial problems. Please know that I'm not going anywhere, nor have I forgotten my promise. Mason District education begins soon. Your teachers are completely grossed out. A hurricane approaches. I'd like to now introduce 3 Fairfax County educators to you. They are members of the Fairfax County Federation of Teachers and members of the Fairfax County Federation of Teachers Sustainability Committee. Amanda Hurwitz, who's not here yet, she may show up a little bit later. Sue Straits, Tina Williams, who's the chairperson. Today they will be sharing about their committee and their involvement in advancing sustainability education for our schools. I appreciate the time and attention that you'll give to them this evening. Thank you so much.
Ms. Williams.
Good evening, school board members. Thank you for this opportunity to speak on Student Achievement Goals 2 and 3. As we celebrate Earth Day this week, it is truly an honor to speak on matters rooted in promoting environmental sustainability and educating citizens who will live locally and think and respond as global citizens. I am Tina Williams. I am a school counselor at Sangster Elementary. I am the chairperson for the Fairfax County Federation of Teachers Sustainability Committee. With me today is Sue Straits. She is a physical education teacher at Kent Gardens Elementary and a member of this committee. Our committee consists of educators, community leaders, business professionals, and concerned parents. These interested parties share resources, knowledge, experiences, and collaborate to promote the life skills of making healthy and safe choices, reacting as responsible citizens, and being global and environmental stewards. Our initiatives promote healthy food choices and energy in areas such as fitness, nutrition, and foods, schoolyard gardens, recycling, reusing, reducing, conservation, renewable and efficient energy, green and healthy school buildings, CHIPS certified construction projects, sustainability curriculum, and that coordination. Programs that we're active and support are Earth Day, Real Food for Kids, Food Day and Culinary Challenge, Green Apple Day of Service, Nova Outside, and Get to Green.
Kent Gardens Elementary School has been renovating its courtyard, a place where teachers, students, parents come together to help students learn about the environment. This spring, all grade levels will plant organic, heirloom seeds to grow nutritious vegetables. Children are keenly attuned to the challenges of the world: clean air and water, energy and waste consumption, poverty and hunger. We and they need greener schools. Being a member of the Sustainability Committee for 3 years has given me an opportunity to visit green schools, learn breakthrough thinking and best practices, attend conferences, present at conferences, and talk with others about how we can make our schools healthier. Elaine Tolan and Allison Colhane, Fairfax County Public School Get to Green coordinators, provide a website and emails with weekly, valuable, updated information for administrators and teachers. The how-tos of recycling for our students, and the annual NOVA Outside Showcase at George Mason University, which our students attended, Green schools make a difference in everyday student learning. Green schools can be cost efficient to build and maintain. We've seen it. From College Park Elementary School in Virginia Beach to Manassas City Schools. We're asking you to please review the attached links that demonstrate model green schools. We want your expert opinions on how green school building development and redevelopment can happen in Fairfax County with a commitment to CHIPS, guidelines, and striving toward LEEDs. We believe Fairfax County Public Schools can lead the way in providing healthy, energy-efficient, cost-conscious schools, but it'll take work. We're ready to roll up our sleeves with you. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Bob Marshall.
Hi, I've got copies of my testimony, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
I'm State Delegate Bob Marshall, commenting on Policy 1450-56. In the absence of express statutory authority from the General Assembly, 3 Democrat Attorney Generals, 2 Republican Attorney Generals, and the Virginia Supreme Court disagree with the opinion of Mark Herring that local governments may unilaterally add sexual orientation or gender identity to local non-discrimination ordinances. 7 Attorney Generals from 1982 through 2010 in 8 opinions all concluded that the General Assembly is the only body with authority to establish or change public policy to define classes of individuals for forbidden discrimination. In that time, 5 Attorney Generals published 6 formal opinions dealing with local governments, including school boards. All 6 use language as follows. Gerald Blough's 1982, Democrat, dealing with the Fairfax Human Rights Ordinance. Concerning the legislative powers of local governing bodies, boards of supervisors have only those powers which are granted expressly by statute or which exist by necessary implication. Any doubt as to the existence of a power must be resolved against the existence of the power. To the extent that the amendments either enlarge upon the definitions of a protected class of persons as presently defined by state statute or declare particular acts to be unlawful under local ordinance, I am constrained to conclude that the amendments are invalid because the Board of Supervisors does not presently have the authority to enact them. William Broadus, Attorney General, 1985, Democrat. In accordance with the prior consistent position of this office, it is my opinion that the City of Alexandria does not have the authority to enlarge upon the class of protected persons as defined by applicable state statute by enacting an ordinance prohibiting discrimination on the basis of sexual preference. In 2010, former Governor Bloughs reaffirmed his 1982 opinion while commenting on an opinion of Attorney General Cuccinelli in which he differed in part. Mr. Bloughs said, "The Attorney General's recent opinion to presidents, rectors, and visitors of Virginia's public colleges and universities correctly states as a matter of law that only the General Assembly can create legislatively protected classes for purposes of non-discrimination." Lastly, the Virginia Supreme Court affirmed the 1997 opinion I received from Attorney General Cullen that Arlington could not add domestic partners to the classes of recipients eligible for health insurance coverage without prior approval of the General Assembly. That decision has not been overturned, is still good law, notwithstanding Mr. Herring's novel conclusions. Mr. Herring claims he's overruling just a single 2002 Attorney General opinion, but he failed to acknowledge 5 other examples from Attorney Generals of both parties and the Supreme Court of Virginia which contradicted his conclusions. In light of the above, and in possible light of local citizen litigation, I urge the board to reject the addition of gender identity and also to remove sexual orientation from your non-discrimination policy, since the Fairfax School Board, according to these authorities which have not been overridden, have not been granted such authority by the General Assembly. Thank you very much.
Andrea Lafferty, followed by Adam Hyatt.
I'm Andrea Lafferty, President of Traditional Values Coalition, resident of Fairfax, and a mother of a school-aged child. On behalf of thousands of children, parents, and grandparents, I speak in opposition to changing Policy 1450. Your policy will adversely impact preschool programs through 12th grade. We have great compassion for those struggling with self-hatred and gender identity issues. There is a way to accommodate transgender students and still protect the other students' privacy rights and the rights of parents. Children need and deserve a psychologically stable and emotionally secure environment in which to learn. Your policy threatens that. In the public discussion on March 12th, the issues you covered were not relevant to parents, and there were real issues that are going to be faced that you didn't talk about. Some of them are bathrooms, changing areas, impact of teachers in the classroom, as well as privacy rights of students and parents. Do not deceive the public. No court has ever interpreted Title IX to require schools to give students access to opposite-sex changing areas. No law requires public schools, including Fairfax, to allow boys into girls' bathrooms or girls into boys' bathrooms. Providing such access is a safety issue. It endangers children and violates the rights of both students and parents. We've seen this over and over, whether it's in Tucson or in Kansas, where real girls are told to wait after someone who is struggling with their identity gets to use the bathroom. In Washington State, a police report stated that Clay Scott Colleen Francis was sitting with her legs open with her male genitalia showing. How are you going to handle that in Fairfax County? And then, of course, we've had a recent incident in Stafford County where, again, girls were told to wait till later. Mr. Moon, you stated at the March 12th meeting that technically, legally speaking, we already have our policy. Suffices our need to prohibit discrimination based on gender identity. By your own admission, the policy change is unnecessary. So why are you guys rushing to make this change? Let's be clear. Under the policy, gender identity is being added as a protected class. Therefore, parents will be prohibited from transferring their child out of the classroom of a transgender teacher. Mr. McElvin touched on the fact that you are doing this because their populations tend to be very highly at risk for suicide or other mental health issues. And so you are going to put people with serious mental health issues that are at a risk for suicide in our classrooms. I'd like an extension of time to finish my statement.
Ma'am, I'm sorry, we typically do not allow that. You'll have I'll give you 10 more seconds so you can wrap up.
So you're going to put people that you acknowledge are suicide risks to be teachers in our classroom. You didn't deal with gender fluidity. Their gender does change. They're one day they want to be a boy, one day they want to be a girl. All this is in my statement. Even Think Progress, which is a liberal group, has said many trans people never undergo these procedures. So what you're going to have in the classroom are she-males, people that are half female and half
that's well
male.
beyond the 10 seconds.
I ask that you would protect our children. They deserve to be protected, and do not change this policy. Thank you.
Adam Hyatt, followed by Chris Harrell.
Hello, my name is Adam Hyatt. I'm a resident of Fairfax County and a parent. First of all, I wanted to give a big thank you to the faculty, staff, and board members of the Fairfax County school system for their tireless efforts to make the school system a great place to educate the next generation. The efforts made today are especially important because today's children determine tomorrow's future and the destiny of our school, county, state, and nation. I want to cite the Attorney General Mark Herring's letter dated March 4th, 2015, in which he says, I further note that determining that the Fairfax County School Board and Fairfax County have no authority to include sexual orientation in their non-discrimination policies, referencing the 2002 opinion. He concludes, it is my opinion that without enabling legislation, the Fairfax County School Board has no authority to include sexual orientation in its non-discrimination policy. The recent November 2014 article by the Alliance Defending Freedom organization specifically addresses this issue. The article describes how such a policy as this could pave the way for any person at any age to enter any gender's bathroom. This scenario has already happened in Stafford County School, Virginia. I quote from their article. More specifically, it has people wondering what giving members of both sexes open access to the other gender's bathrooms will mean for men, women, and especially children impacted by such laws. It is a growing problem. It has happened in Minnesota, Rhode Island, and Wisconsin, among others. The ADF letter explains that contrary to what some mistakenly believe, no federal law requires public schools to allow boys into girls' restrooms or girls into boys' restrooms. In fact, by opening all bathrooms to both sexes, school officials could be opening themselves to legal liability for violating students' privacy rights and placing children in potentially unsafe conditions. They describe an alternate policy, which I've included with my statement today. Schools have a duty to protect the privacy, safety, and dignity of all students, says ADF Legal Counsel. Any safety and privacy policy should respect the needs of all children because every child matters. No policy should be tailored to a few students at the expense of every other student. Schools can accommodate a small number of students that have different needs without compromising the rights of other children and their parents, says ADF Senior Legal Counsel Jeremy Tedesco. No child should be forced into an intimate setting like a bathroom or a locker room with a child of the opposite sex. Our model policy provides a solution without exposing schools to liability and children to threats to their safety and privacy. For many Americans, the very ideas that these kinds of legal challenges are upon us is hard to fathom. The privacy and safety implications of giving people of the opposite sex ready access to a gender-designated public bathroom, a place in which individuals feel particularly vulnerable and isolated, is so obvious as to hardly need elaboration. In conclusion, end of quote, any exploration or confusion of one's own sexual identity or gender has no place in the public school system or policy. These are intimate and religious issues which are best taught in the home. We have such limitations for alcohol, drugs, drinking, and even seeing R-rated movies, and children's brains are still developing until age 26. We should allow children the time they need without such policies as will endanger children's safety and override parents. Thank you.
Chris Harrell. All right, Robert Rigby Jr.
Good evening, school board members. It's much easier to speak to a room full of 30 freshmen than 12 people in suits, let me tell you that. My name is Robert Rigby. I've been a teacher in Fairfax since 1999 and am currently a Latin teacher at West Potomac High School. I'm also the sponsor of the Gay Straight Alliance at WestPo. I was a member of the group working in 2001 and 2002 for the inclusion of sexual orientation in the anti-harassment policy and the school system's non-discrimination policy. Hello, Mrs. Strauss. We succeeded in the former, but not the latter. I was pleased to learn this fall that the school board added sexual orientation to the non-discrimination policy, and I support the motion to add gender identity to the policy. As the sponsor of the GSA at 2 schools over the years, and from hearing from students and parents, I can say that harassment and discrimination based on sexual orientation have decreased during my time working for Fairfax. However, transgender students and students who do not display traditional gender expression, that is, students who may not be typically masculine or feminine to varying degrees, continue to experience a great deal of harassment. Their friends and family members also hear some amazingly negative comments. Many staff may not be aware of how to treat students with different gender identities and expressions, and quite frankly, some have had some fairly negative impacts on students over the years. Our whole community, our staff and our students, need to be more conscious of the concerns of students who are different in this way. The school board has the authority and the opportunity to make a crucial difference in the lives of our students, to take the first steps, and only the first steps, towards making school a tolerable place for transgender students. It's hard enough being a teenager, it's hard enough being transgender without harassment and discrimination, and we can do something about it. Let's see. As a brief note, if you receive negative communications anchored on the bathroom issue, which you have, I would say they're a red herring. To my knowledge, there's never been a bad actor relieved of responsibility based on gender identity claim. Such negative statements amount to scare tactics, a sort of modern-day blood libel. And the issue isn't really about bathrooms. It's about how you wear your hair, or how you dress, or how you act. Rather than that red herring. I have a couple of suggestions. My students will tell you I always have suggestions. First, you may want to change the anti-harassment policy as well as the non-discrimination policy in the SR&R. You may have done so already and I missed it. You may want to modify the new policy statement from gender identity to gender identity/expression. I realize that's not the language Mr. Herring used, but it is a broader policy with clearer protections for students who may not have identified as a different gender. My time is up. Thank you for listening.
Manny Sullen.
Yeah, hi. I apologize. I don't have a written statement. I kind of heard about this at the last minute. I am speaking for myself, but I've been a step parent in the county. Currently, I look around, I'm probably the oldest person in the room. Anyway, I've been involved in these issues for a long time. I don't speak for these groups, but I'm currently on the Fairfax County Human Rights Commission and on their committee that they send to the school board, where I recognize several of you from coming there. Thank you for your work and for an excellent school system. And I have to say, I don't want to embarrass you, Jane. I think the last time I was here, you were here. You were the only one that was here, but you still look good. Anyway, the last time I came here, it was because my wife drags me to these things, but it was something about a sex education course, and some of these people who I kind of recognize, if not them, their precedents, were thinking the world was going to end. And I found out it was a 1-hour course, I think, and they could opt out. So the sky is always falling. And years ago, as a graduate student, I was involved as a crazy New Yorker who was at the University of Texas. I got involved in integration. And some of the same arguments that were used, that the world is going to end if we end the discrimination of blacks, I hear today. And frankly, I'm starting to get passionate. It really bugs the hell out of me. The world is not going to end. And what I think is, I think of these kids. And in a sense, they may not be my kids, but in a way they are my kids. They are all our children. And I'll take the low statistics. They claim 0.5% may be transgender. But I think you would know, we have maybe 200,000 students in Fairfax County. That makes 1,000 kids. 50, I'll split the difference. I say 40 to 60%. Attempt suicide, maybe 50% killed themselves. That's 500 kids are going to die. And one of the reasons they're going to die is they get this hatred and misunderstanding from some people. Now, some of the people, I can understand their concern. Frankly, I don't quite still maybe understand being transgender. But to me, one of the worst things could be two things. One, having Alzheimer's, which I may get, and being locked in my own mind. The other is being locked in a body and you think it's the wrong gender. Your brain is telling you, hey, I'm in the wrong body. I can't think. Now, I love these people, they're nice, but to have that feeling and not be able to get out and express yourself is a hell on earth. And I think we owe it to ourselves, to these kids who are our kids, to go and speak up for them. Thank you very much.
Speaker number 9, Karen Solon.
He must want me to cook dinner or make wine for him tonight. This is my spouse, and I'm very proud of him. I was not prepared to speak tonight, so I don't have 16 copies of what I want to say. What I did know that I wanted to bring to somebody was a copy of Robert Fry's words from, I believe, Robert Rigby, and I think it was about 2001, 2002, and I remember we've been here a long time. This is not a new issue. Robert Fry, you can look him up, but he was a member, he was 3 times member of the Fairfax County School Board. He grew up as a young black man in Washington, D.C., and he testified as a school board member back or spoke to us in 2001 or 2 about what it meant to him to see the words on the Jefferson Memorial that all men are created equal. He urged these board members in the audience to understand that words matter. And putting these words, he was advocating then for adding sexual orientation to the county, which obviously didn't happen until this past fall. But he wanted you to understand that just having these words does matter. And he said they gave me hope, and his voice cracked as he spoke that. These young people, these transgender young people, need or struggling with their gender identity and trying on expressions, whatever they need to do, they need hope. They need to know that you realize they're going through whatever they're going through, and they need your support. And I urge you to put those words in there. And I agree with Robert Rigby that expression would be wonderful to add, because very often that's the beginning of their understanding of who they are. One of the things also on the Jefferson, well, let me also just briefly say that I wish I had some kind of big credential other than the pins that I've carried around for about 20-some years. But I have been a Fairfax County resident for over 40 years. My 2 children went through the system and graduated, have done very well. But I also provided childcare and was an early childhood educator in the county. I'm on Facebook with many of these kids now turning 30 and going into their 30s. They were a diverse group of kids. I worked with low-income and children with disabilities and so on, low-income families, working poor families. And a quote that I love from Audre Lorde, was that children need to learn, and I say adults need to learn as well, but children need to learn that they do not have to be like each other in order to work together for a future that they will all share. My concern is primarily for these young people struggling with their identity. It has to be, as my husband said, in some ways a hell on earth if they don't have some support somewhere. Secondly, the other concern, and I'll finish with this, is for all of the other kids that we need to create a climate in which these children understand as part of their civic responsibility that they do not have to be like the other kids in order to respect them and treat them with dignity. And that's what I want you to do with these little words. They do matter. Thank you so much for your time.
George Becerra.
Good evening, Superintendent Gars and school board members. Sorry, didn't plan on speaking tonight, but I don't think I'll be here for the May 7th school board meeting, and I wanted to talk at that meeting right before your work session on the strategic plan. So my comments are going to be on the strategic plan. I don't know if you had any chance to read the new budget guidance for next year that the Board of Supervisors drafted. So I wanted to read you parts of it when maybe Ms. Quinn and Dr. Gars can pass around. Consistent with the direction from the Joint Board Decision Committee concerning meeting joint priorities, the Board of Supervisors and School Board should also collaborate on identifying multi-year plans for closing the minority student achievement gap and enhancing career and technical education programs. These plans should identify both long-term and interim goals, suggested funding allocations, and programmatic priorities designed to reach the ultimate goals. The Board suggests a 10-year plan to end homelessness be used as a model for the development of these plans. So in hindsight here, I know we're still in this budget year, but this is what your guidance is going to be for next year, and how maybe if you want that 7 or 8% compared to the 3 that was guidance this year, and you ended with 3.2. In putting that closing achievement gap again, 2.0 plan into the strategic plan, right now you have fluff in there. I think you have a good start, but you do not have what has some meat behind it. And I think as I make my rounds with the Board of Supervisors, when I advocate for school money, I also will make this as metrics. As we got Mr. Storck and Ms. Smith, who are running for Board of Supervisors, I think this is some of the things you're going to be judged on when you have to set your budget for next year. So I would look for the school system, look at this plan again before you adopt it in June. Second point tonight, wow, I'm surprised with the people who come out here every time for single issues. Again, we meet twice a month here. Hopefully you can come back again. Not single issues, we are a system. With that said, I appreciate the delegates who will be speaking here tonight. No offense or anything, I applaud you for your effort of public service. But at the end of the day, Prince William and William counties and Loudoun counties aren't really, this is not them. We're here in Fairfax. So Mr. Marshall, Mr. LaRock, I appreciate you coming and speaking. Please visit our restaurants. Please visit our gas stations and do some business. But at the end of the day, you don't speak for the Fairfax County residents. If Mr. Albo was here, a little different. Mr. Sasla was here, was different. We can hear them out because they do represent us. And with that said, again, you heard my comments last year on this sexual orientation. I don't have to repeat that. It applies to the gender identity. Again, I appreciate your time, and have a good evening.
David LaRock.
Thank you again, Madam Chairman, for extending me the courtesy of speaking, even though I didn't follow your guidelines. I really do appreciate that. And thank you to all the board members. I know that you're here not because of the privilege of doing all the hard work, late nights, dealing with contentious issues like this is not all fun, and I really appreciate that. I heard a little bit of the presentations that took place here, and obviously you're doing some things really right. There's some great kids, and I applaud you for that. This is a very important issue. I'm here to speak on the proposal of adding gender identity to the non-discrimination policy 1450. And in looking into this, looking at the AG's opinion, and looking at the Code of Conduct handbooks, and looking at the laws of Virginia, three dominant themes I think are worth bringing in front of you. I'm sure you're very aware of them, but I think it's a good time to maybe reflect on them. One is the need to protect individual rights. I know that's a difficult charge, perhaps the most difficult of the three that I'll mention, because in that group of individuals, the rights are very, very different. We've heard different speakers here talking about the rights of transgender and the need to protect them, and I don't think anyone in this room would disagree with that. All of us respect all people as human beings. How they're treated in the context of a school, in the setting of a school, is really what this board is charged with making a decision on. The second that I find that, again, is dominant in the Virginia law is the need of the school board to promote, to form policies that are conducive to learning and free from distractions. Attorney General Herring, in my opinion, formed an opinion of his own that defies common sense. I don't think that, well, I'll just pose the question rather than insert my opinion. Can you form the kind of policies that are being contemplated that would eliminate consideration of gender in school policies, meaning non-discrimination in a civil rights context and in a literal definition are slightly different. But basically, what they amount to is that, in this case, gender identity cannot be taken into consideration in a way that differentiates those people or gives them different treatment. Can you possibly do that with consideration to the third charge that is dominant in Virginia law? And that is that all policies, again, be respective of individual rights, maintain an atmosphere that's free of distraction and is conducive to learning, and is respective of parents' consideration and their own individual rights and personal beliefs. I listened to the school board meeting audio. I appreciate those being online, very convenient. And what I heard was pretty much unanimous. I know maybe not absolutely unanimous, but a very broad acceptance of a policy that hasn't been formed yet. This policy would obviously bring with it a whole variety of changes and other policies that would affect all of these things. They would affect individual rights, not just of the gender, children who are transgender. They would affect their parents. And from what I gathered, maybe I'm misinformed, but I didn't hear that there was a consideration for input from the parents who would be affected by this. Again, I'll just conclude by thanking you for giving me the time to speak, ask you to please consider these three things. And again, I urge you at this time, without the policy before you, to not vote in favor of it, and please distribute it to parents and invite collaboration from the community before voting on it. Thanks very much.
Speaker number 6, who was Chris Harrell, did he arrive? No. All right. Thank you. Thank you to all of our speakers who came out this evening. Next, we move on to our action items. And, oh, excuse me, I skipped over student representative matters. Mr. Lateef, I'm very sorry.
I thought you liked me. Okay, I'm sorry. Ms. Goddard, you will remember that all my written remarks, they were under 5 minutes, but I'm going to have to stray from them after what I've heard today. Hate. It has caused a lot of problems in this world, but it hasn't solved one yet, said Maya Angelou. Discrimination on any minority threatens every minority, and indeed it threatens us all. This is the 21st century, and high school is very, very difficult without being discriminated against for simply who you are. And I cannot comprehend being discriminated against for merely an aspect of my identity or an aspect of my lifestyle or aspect of who I am. I urge the school board to be proactive. Let Fairfax County be proactive on this topic, unlike back in the 60s. I believe we already talked about this at the forum work session. We were not proactive at all. So I think we can lead if there is no, I listened to the arguments today, but if we can be a first, I think we should definitely be a first. The times are changing, and if you talk to students at the Student Advisory Council today, I mentioned that we added sexual orientation to the non-discrimination policy back in November, and students were very pleased to hear that, and I imagine they'd be pleased to hear this as well. So please act looking forward, not in the past. Moving on. Thank you. Back to my remarks, back to our regularly scheduled programming. Welcome to the fourth quarter. I'm still planning on coming to meetings, however shocking that may seem for a senior who, as of 8:30 this evening, is 1 month, 20 days, 13 hours, and 30 minutes away from graduation. But as you may have guessed, there is work yet to be done. This morning, I attended the very final and bittersweet meeting of the 2014-2015 Student Advisory Council. I've gotten to know many delegates from each corner of Fairfax County Public Schools, and I have had the pleasure of knowing some of them since I was first elected back in February of 2014. I thank the members of the Student Advisory Council for their service and for their work to make FCPS a better place to learn. I thank Dr. Garza for taking time out of her schedule to meet with us today, and as she was at many meetings throughout the year, and field some questions from our SAC delegates. I think they held their own. It was pretty impressive. Last Wednesday, April the 15th, I visited Annandale High School, where I spoke to their student leadership class. We covered a broad range of topics, but as was the case at many schools I visited, no other issue produced a greater response or discussion than the different grading policies that exist at high schools across the county. Let me preface this by saying that FCPS is working on our grading policy, but I still think it's something important to highlight. This is why we're doing what we're doing. The way our current system works, students at different high schools in Fairfax County do not live and work under the same rules. Everything from what goes into a teacher's grade book when a student does not turn in an assignment to what options students have when it comes to retaking exams they performed poorly on are not standard across the county. In fact, after speaking with students and teachers from many different schools, it is obvious that these policies can vary quite widely. I'll focus on two schools tonight, which many people agree they lie on opposite ends of the spectrum, that being Oakton and my home base of Langley. At Langley, if I were not to turn in an assignment, an AP Gov worksheet, for example, my teacher would input a 0 into the grade book. At Oakton, if a student were not to turn in that very same AP Gov worksheet, they'd get a 50% into the grade book. Back at Langley, if, God forbid, I were to score a 35 on a quiz or test, it would be the grade that my teacher would put into the grade book, but at Oakton, that 35 I earned would bump up to a 50 when my teacher put it into the grade book. Although both a 0 and a 50% are less than 64, and therefore considered a failing grade on the current FCPS grading scale, it does not take a math degree to know that when factoring a 50% into the overall grade versus throwing in a 0, very different effects. When it comes to retake, students at Oakton, as long as they're in good standing, are guaranteed at least one retake on every test that they take, regardless of the original score of the assessment. Not in every case can you go back to 100, but in many you can. There's no requirement at Langley. I thank Ms. Erin Cooper of Oakton, along with many students at Oakton when I visited, for giving me a lot of information. Some may argue that this is a fair system since at least all the students at Oakton are on a level playing field with their peers, and all the students at Langley are on the level playing field with their peers. But let me tell you a story from my friend Ben Press, who, other than being the next student representative, is a junior at James Madison, on why this is completely inequitable. Last year, Ben had an upperclassman friend who was recruited to play soccer at Stanford University on a full-ride scholarship. Like many scholarships, it came with a requirement that she maintain her class grades at an A or B level. At the end of the second quarter of her junior year, she struggled through a unit exam and received a C. Her class grade dropped from a B- to a C+ for the year, and Stanford revoked her acceptance and her scholarship. Had the student attended school at Oakton, just a 4-minute drive away, she'd have had the opportunity to retake the exam, and the student's grade would have been a B-, and she could be playing soccer on a full-ride scholarship at Stanford. Stories like this should encourage us to make sure that we have a county-wide grading policy that allows each and every FCPS student to have a level playing field and an equal shot at success in college and beyond. I've heard many suggestions from the students I've met across the county as to what that grading policy should be, but the one thing everyone agrees on that we should definitely have a standard grading policy. I applaud the FCPS leadership team for forming a grading policy committee and working to find an equitable grading policy for the county. And I encourage that it be rolled out as soon as realistically possible, and I look forward to providing input. Looking ahead, I'll be touring the Key Center School in Springfield tomorrow at noon. I'll be at the 6th grade All-County Choir Festival all the way down at Mount Vernon High School on Saturday, and I'll be at the Gatehouse Center on Monday for the Student Leadership Development Program's mock work session. And lastly, she's not here tonight, but perhaps she'll watch this, I'd like to congratulate Miss Mary Ellen Hook, who after 33 years of service to Fairfax County Public Schools will be retiring at the end of this coming August. Ms. Hook is the Executive Administrative Assistant to Ms. Hynes, Mr. Storck, and myself. I am 18 and I'm able to say that. That is shocking. I cannot thank her enough for the help and support throughout the course of my term since I believe it was last June, Ms. Goddard and everyone oriented me as to what I would be doing as student rep. And I wish her nothing but the best in retirement, and she's already promised she'll be visiting me in Edinburgh, so I'm really looking forward to it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Lateef, and I do like you. I do want to just make a note. One of my colleagues had suggested this, and I do want to say, you know, Policy 1450, which is our non-discrimination, that is not going to be voted on tonight. I just wanted our audience members to note that, but we will have a vote on that on May 7th. So thank you. Moving on to action items, 4.01, Student Achievement Goal number 2. I call on Ms. Evans for a motion.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move that the school board accept the monitoring reports and presentation for Student Achievement Goal 2, Development Essential Life Skills, and Student Achievement Goal 3, Responsibility to the Community and the World as detailed in the agenda item.
Seconded by Mr. Velkoff. All right, Ms. Evans, would you like to speak?
I would, just very briefly. I'm very pleased to make this motion to approve Student Achievement Goal 2, the report on essential life skills, and Student Achievement Goal 3, demonstrate responsibility to the community and the world. These are very impressive reports showing the critical importance that this board and our school system place on the health and well-being of our students and on the qualities needed to live and thrive in the larger world. These reports are rich with data on just how much our school system does to promote well-being and the positive impact that we are having in anti-bullying work, restorative justice as part of our discipline reform efforts, and supporting improved resiliency among our young people. We are making greater efforts in the area of physical exercise, good nutrition, and adequate sleep, all critical to health and learning. It is a tribute to our school system that we put this emphasis on areas that aren't measured by such things as standardized tests. That we have a report, for example, that talks about things like promoting kindness among our students. We, of course, do need to do more in some of these areas, such as was mentioned tonight by our partner at the Unified Coalition, that we do need to get our marijuana use down, just as we've made great strides in getting our tobacco use down, and continuing our work on addressing depression and anxiety issues. But I do congratulate the staff on the excellent work that they have done in all of these very, very important areas. Thank you, and I urge support for this motion.
Mr. Velkoff, would you like to speak to your second?
I cannot improve on those wonderful comments from my colleague, Ms. Evans.
All right, Ms. McLaughlin.
Just for those of you who did not have the wonderful opportunity 2 weeks ago when staff presented to the board these reports on Goal 2 and 3, my colleagues and I spoke with such enthusiastic excitement about where this school system is going. And in particular, we gave very strong praise to Dr. Garza, her leadership team, Dr. Kim Dockery, Dr. Jane Lipp, and Marianne Panarelli, and many others who have really helped this board in recent years move in the direction that so many of us have really hoped to see for all of the children in our public schools. And as Ms. Evans talked about, part of what we touched upon 2 weeks ago with discipline reform, with the social emotional learning, I also wanted to touch upon the fact that when you look at things like starting as early as preschool and kindergarten, the executive functioning skills that we know nationally are proven through research and best practices, Dr. Dockery bringing a national expert like Ellen Galinsky to come and partner with Fairfax County Schools, that is innovative. That is what is going to not only help our 180,000 students plus, but also be able to hopefully spotlight this at the national level so that school systems across the country will really start to understand as we try and wrestle with the quite frankly, the shackles of No Child Left Behind. While well-intentioned, they really have restricted that creative and critical thinking that is so essential in 21st century education. And so these reports that we received 2 weeks ago, if we've stimulated the curiosity of the audience to go look and to read them, in my mind, they speak to some of the best work that's happening here in Fairfax County Schools. I think it is a hallmark for what we've been known for decades of being leaders and providing a quality instruction for our children. And when we focus on being able to educate the whole child with those lifelong skills, we then are honoring our children for leading us into the next generation. So very excited, Dr. Garza, to applaud you and your team for this excellent work, and look forward to partnering with you all as we continue this incredible innovation for our public schools.
All right, if there are no other comments, the motion on the table is that I move that the school board accept the monitoring reports and presentation for student achievement goal number 2, develop essential life skills, and student achievement goal number 3, responsibility to the community and the world, as detailed in the agenda item. All those in favor? The vote is unanimous. Next, we move on to 4.02, and again, I call on Ms. Evans.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move that the school board approve guidelines for the election of school board chair and vice chair as detailed in the agenda item and update the strategic governance manual accordingly.
Is there a second? Seconded by Mr. Moon. Ms. Evans.
Yes, I just wanted to remind the board and the public why we came up with this. In January, the board tasked the governance committee with coming up with a proposed timeline for running for chair and vice chair. The committee made its recommendation on a timeline, and the board did consider this at a work session on March 16th. There was consensus to move forward with the proposal and to add the timeline to our strategic governance manual. This is where we are tonight, and I urge support for this motion.
Mr. Moon?
Oh, there's nothing to add to that.
Ms. Schultz.
I do want to just comment on it because this is sort of inside baseball, I think, for much of the public, and I don't necessarily know that there's any clarity for them on what this means. There was an earlier work session that is accessible on our website, and our work sessions, our all-day work sessions, are available via videotape on our school board website. I'm neither opposed to nor particularly supportive of this change. I'm not sure that it actually functionally does anything, and that's the one thing that it bothers me for us to spend our time on something that actually doesn't yield something productive at the end. Because in the end, the way this policy is written, a person could serve 2 years as vice chair, 2 years as chair. Someone else could serve 2 years as vice chair, 2 years as chair.
You're talking about the next one.
That's correct.
We're on the first one.
Oh, well, I'm gonna put myself on pause and hold, because I thought we were at term limits.
All right.
That's next.
That's next.
So I'll put myself on hold. When we was talking chair and
All
vice
right.
chair, I thought, in term limits, I thought we were already there.
All right. Ms. McLaughlin.
I just want to thank my colleagues for the discussions we've had so far on this. As someone who serves on governance, I also appreciate the work that we talked about this particular issue. I do believe that these guidelines for election of school board chair and vice chair will hopefully move us in a positive direction as a board. I think what it does is hopefully enable all of us to do our best to engage with one another. Unlike the Board of Supervisors, where the chairman of the county for the Board of Supervisors runs and is elected by the voters. For us, the chair of the school board is a decision for the 12 of us. And it's difficult herding 12 cats. And I know that Ms. Koufax and those who preceded before her, it is a challenge. And I tip my hat to anyone who serves as chair or vice chair in doing their best to try and build collegiality and hopefully finding consensus, and most importantly also compromise. So for this reason, I support it, and I really do hope that we can embrace the intent of this, which is to enable all 12 of us to feel engaged and a part of this very important decision we make each year, which is the two positions that will lead the board and help us do our best work.
Ms. Reed and then Ms. Hynes.
Thank you, Ms. Derenak Koufax. I just wanted to thank my colleague, Ms. Hynes. Upon reflection, it was back in the early fall that we started talking about this issue and trying to come up with ways to improve ourselves. So we talk about continuous improvement for FCPS, and this is an example of how we were looking at the way we do our own business. And we thought, well, we might be able to do a little bit better. So I'm very pleased with actually seeing the results now of some very good thinking and deliberation. It's much more of a team approach. We have now some procedures in place, and I'm very happy to see it. So I very much am supportive of this. Thank you.
Ms. Hynes.
Pretty much a ditto. Thank you, Ms. Reed, for helping me brainstorm. And thanks so much, Ms. Evans and the Governance Committee for being willing to chew on this for several months and come up with something that I can certainly support. So thank you.
All right, the motion on the table, 4.02, is that I move that the school board approve guidelines for the election of the school board chair and vice chair as detailed in the agenda item and update the strategic governance manual accordingly. All those in favor? The motion is unanimous and it passes. And Ms. Evans gets the third one. Ms. Evans is the chair of our governance committees. That's why Ms. Evans gets the privilege of doing all of this.
And am honored to do so. Thank you, Madam Chair. I move that the school board approve guidelines. I'm sorry, I was on the wrong one. I know, I did the same thing Mrs. Schultz did. I move that the school board approve term limits for board members serving in the chair or vice chair position as follows. No more than 2 years as chair during a 4-year term, and no more than 2 years as vice chair during a 4-year term, as detailed in the agenda item, and update the strategic governance manual accordingly.
Seconded by Ms. Hynes.
Second.
Once again, the governance was asked to consider whether we should have term limits for chair and vice chair. The governance committee pondered this and had some discussions and brought a recommendation to the full board that we have a maximum that a chair can serve, any individual school board member can serve 2 years as chair and 2 years as vice chair during any 4-year school board term. So we did discuss this at our March 16th work session, had a consensus to move forward with this, and this does then, will add language to the strategic governance manual to that effect, and I urge support.
Ms. Hynes?
Yeah, I appreciate the effort here. I think it's probably what the, the best that we're going to come up with, as a compromise. We also have talked about this for months. And I think this is important because we have 12 members on this board and lots of different leadership experience and abilities. And my goal here is just to make sure that we're taking advantage of all of those different leadership styles. And I don't think we would probably ever be in a position where at a 4-year period, anyone would serve as chair more than twice anyway. So I don't know if this makes a huge difference, but at least it sets in stone our desire to share the responsibility for leading this board. And so that's why I will support this. Thank you.
Ms. Smith?
I'm going to speak in opposition to this. I don't believe that we should tie the hands of the board in any year. I think the board should be able to make a decision of who they want for chair because it's a majority decision. And so I don't support limiting that. I think each year when the board makes a decision on who they want for chair or vice chair, it should be open to whoever they want. I don't think it's about a matter of taking turns. I think it's a matter of the board deciding who they want for their chair. So I will vote no.
Ms. Schultz?
This is when I wish the great staff that we had out in the truck could just edit and put my other comments insert here. But thank you for what you do out there. But I'll have to do my own editing. So as I was saying on 4.02, which was really 4.03, the work of government officials doing and spending time on things that in the end don't really result in a material difference concerns me. On the one hand, the former, the 4.02, I do understand, but as I was previously saying, the effect of this change could result in, out of a body of 12 elected officials, result in somebody serving 2 terms as vice chair and 2 terms as chair, and one other person serving 2 terms as vice chair and 2 terms as chair, and concentrating the leadership in some deal over 4 years to 2 people out of 12. And I don't think that that's particularly wise. I don't think that's the intent of this change, but it doesn't lay it out not to do that. And we attempted to discuss this at the work session, that if you are limited to one or the other, or 2 years total, then that's a material change that I think actually potentially benefits from an array of leadership qualities that the voters all saw fit to put us into office utilizing. So, I have mixed feelings. I appreciate Ms. Smith, my colleague, bringing up why she doesn't think we should pass this. I don't happen to agree with her from that perspective, and I'm sure she doesn't agree with me. So I have just somewhat, benign interest in this. I wish that in practice, the words here would yield a different result, and I look forward to the work of the board being actually behind these words to effect a change, because that's where the real change happens, not so much in saying that you're going to change, but in actual action behind the change. So I don't know, when we go to vote, I may or may not vote for it.
Ms. McLaughlin? Oh, you didn't? I'm sorry, Mr. Storck then.
Thank you. I'm going to vote against this motion. I don't believe in tying the hands of future school board members, frankly, and I think that's what this does, even though I think the intent is correct. I think it is clear that we do better as a board when we spread those leadership opportunities around and we really listen to our colleagues, and frankly, we interact with our colleagues in ways that we know that it'll be spread around, meaning that you are conscious of how you conduct yourself in the future might be how somebody else should conduct themselves, and you kind of spread that positive process and positive methodology. As the last consecutive three-term chairman of the school board, I know at that time my colleagues thought very long and hard about whether or not they wanted to elect me to a third consecutive term, and I frankly don't blame them. I recognize that that was an unusual situation, but I think the core thing is that I trust you all as colleagues. I trust that when we have the elections this summer, that there will be recognition that we have a larger mission, and that is to make sure that we find ways to work together and we collaborate, and when we make decisions that frankly are tough, and those are some of the toughest decisions we make because they're so personal, that we'll find a way to balance those decisions in a way that everybody feels at least positive about the process, even if it doesn't feel so good if you're one of the individuals that isn't elected, or your particular person isn't elected. So again, I don't believe in tying future school board members' hands. I don't think you should either. I think you should recognize that you will conduct yourself in a way that honors this motion, honors this recommendation, and just commit yourself to doing that. And I think the future boards will work out the more difficult parts of the chair and vice chair elections as part of that. Thank you.
Mr. Velkoff.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You know, for some reason, we commonly associate Mr. Storck with President Lincoln, but I think in the history of the school board, he's probably going to go down more like Franklin Delano Roosevelt in terms of serving consecutive terms.
Just along the line when I'm done.
Yeah. I want to be sure I know what I'm voting for here. So the language says that a school board member may serve in both sentences, and I'm reading that literally because it has a different interpretation than shall. So I am working with the assumption that the option of the word shall was considered by governance and was rejected, and that the governance committee settled on the word may because it had a slightly different interpretation. Am I correct about that?
Answer that?
Yes.
This says that one person may only do this for 2 years out of a 4-year term. And so shall wouldn't really fit in terms of limiting the amount.
Okay, because the previous sentence does use, the words that are currently there use the word shall. And I'm saying that if I were reading this, I would never interpret may to have the same meaning as shall. So I read this as a recommendation and guideline, which I fully support. The reason I'm raising this is because the recommendation and some of the talk is talking about that these are actually term limits. And in this regard, I am in agreement with Mr. Storck and Mrs. Smith in the sense that, we can't predict what circumstances may be faced by future boards, and where there may be some particular reason why literally adhering to this might not be in the best interest of the board. So I'm perfectly happy to support this with the understanding that the word may is a strong recommendation, but that is not fully binding in the way the word shall is.
I'll get to you. Ms. McLaughlin.
Well, it's fortuitous that I'm following Mr. Velkoff because I agree with his interpretation, and I point simply to the Fairfax County Student Rights and Responsibilities, where shall is shall. It's a must. It must be. May is, as Mr. Velkoff pointed out, recommendation. You can do it, you don't have to do it. So I actually not sure how the language was drafted and why the word may is in there instead of shall, because from our work session conversations, I thought we really were pretty clear that the whole point of this was actually to have it say and mean something. And I think this may be one of those things where, unexpected oversight in the use of a word, they're not really interchangeable, may versus shall. So I worry about that. In terms of what my colleagues have said, for anyone who is following our conversation right now, I think it's actually another great example of something where it's well-intentioned, and then what's the outcome? Or what do you hope will happen, and then maybe what are the unintended consequences from it? So on the one hand, the benefit of this recommendation, especially if it's a shall, and we are to follow it, is that you do have an opportunity where if the board has some split leadership or split voting bodies where it's a slim majority, and the slim majority keeps electing the same chair that may not actually work to the best of the full board, you could find yourselves in the minority voting body having 4 straight years with a chair that you don't feel is really serving the full board to the best of its needs and abilities. So the term limit in that regard is actually of benefit, I believe, to the full board. However, the flip side is that, as I mentioned earlier with the 12 cats and trying to herd us, different leadership styles, trying to have a leader who can relate to not only the diversity of the board, but also being able to have someone who is comfortable, who can really bring together all 12. That takes a special kind of leadership, and so sometimes it might be that all 12 of us might be served best if we did have access to a particular person who we all, as like with our superintendent, we were unanimous in her selection, and we unanimously find her ability to bring us together at our very best. So to pass something like this would limit our board entire hands if we were to have a member who really has that unique ability to bring all of us together. So I will say I'm actually conflicted on this one because I think it has upsides, and I think it also has some downsides to the language. But with all that said, I guess I would echo Mr. Velkoff's question. Was everybody clear that the may is the may and it isn't a shall? And so I look forward to hearing more from people before we vote.
All right, I have a couple go backs, so would anyone who hasn't spoken yet like to speak? Ms. Reed.
Wow, and I thought this was going to be a short discussion. Upon reflection back in early fall when Ms. Hynes and I sat down, this was the second part of our discussion, was looking at the leadership abilities of the 12 of us and expressing a shared desire to allow opportunities for all of us to be leaders in some way. And so this language that's in front of us, I think, is the governance committee's best attempt at doing that. I feel that in some ways, now that we're talking about the may versus shall, if it's may, then it's guidelines, and it's really not all that strong of a language. It's like, well, you could do this, but you really don't have to. You can really do whatever you want anyway. And so looking back at our initial intention, I'm not sure that it now meets that initial intention. On the other hand, it's better than nothing, and it's a compromise. And if nothing else, this board has learned that we need to compromise. So it is forward progress. I will say, though, that what we seem to have lost sight of is that it isn't a popularity contest. It isn't about who can, be the line leader the most times. It should be about who's most qualified for that particular position and the responsibilities associated with it. And, whether it's seniority or whether it's their skills and abilities, to me, those are the kinds of things that should be considered. And, that this doesn't really get at that one way or the other. This is just simply counting. So at the end of the day, we could, just based on the process and the popularity or the factions or whatever you want to call it, you could really elect people over and over again who really don't have the skills to be in the job at all. And then we'd all be sunk because, you know, if you're not a good facilitator, I mean, Ms. Darnett Koufax has done a wonderful job, and you see, I talk about herding cats, you see what she has to try to deal with. Planning meetings, I mean, you could go on and on about all the things that you do, and we appreciate you're very good in that position, and that's my point. And so I'm hopeful that reading these words, that there's some intentionality behind it to make sure that we have a process that, one, puts people in roles where they can succeed and use their experiences and talents effectively, and two, gives opportunities to more than just one or two people on this board. After all, we're 12 leaders here. So I guess what I'm saying, at the end of the day, I'll support this because it's better than nothing.
All right, Mr. Moon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I didn't realize that this deserved this much discussion among 12 of us. I thought this was simple internal organizational matter that, I mean, I pretty much agree with Mrs. Smith and Mr. Storck that we should not be tying not just the future board, but our own hands in selecting our own leaders. But looking at the language, I mean, this was a compromise for me. And something I can support at this point, because if and when the board, which always acts by majority vote, I'm not gonna, no matter what the majority does, I'm not, I would hesitate in criticizing action of the majority if the majority sees fit to elect someone to serve as a chair or vice chair multiple times. That's the majority's right, given right to do that, and I respect that. If we see another great leader like Mr. Storck, who had the last to serve as the chair for 3 times in a row in the future, and we see our internal organization manual states that term limit is for 2 years, the board could change the internal organizational policy at that point and do away with the term limit at that point and elect another Mr. Storck for 3rd term or 4th term. So with that, I mean, I see, as a member of the governance committee, feeling that there are board members who wanted to have a little more term limit on the number of times one served in the leadership position. This was my compromise position.
All right, I have several go-backs, starting with Ms. Smith.
My recollection is we didn't get into the detail of may or shall. This was just written as this is what it's going to be. It wasn't written to have flexibility. We did not get into the specifics of may or shall. I would tell you our intent was this is it. It wasn't written this way to be something you could switch around.
Mr. Storck.
I have to admit I'm now relatively confused. So I'm going to start with could someone read for me the motion on the floor? Because my understanding is different than what people have been referring to. So Madam Chair, could you read the motion on the floor, please?
I will. It's on your green sheet, but I will be happy to read it out loud.
I'm doing that for a purpose, so.
I move that the school board approve term limits for board members serving in the chair or vice chair position as follows. No more than 2 years as chair during a 4-year term, and no more than 2 years as vice chair during a 4-year term, and update as detailed in the agenda item, and update the strategic governance manual accordingly.
Okay, so the motion doesn't have may in it. The motion doesn't have any really equivocating language in it at all. If you look at board docs and what apparently is going to be written into the governance manual, it is not the motion. It is something different. It says a school board member may serve no more than 2 years as chair during a 4-year school board term. And that is not at all the language that we would be approving if we vote in favor of this motion on the floor right now. So I don't want anybody to misunderstand. If you approve this motion on the floor right now, there's no may in there. It's not equivocal. there's no equivocation in
Well,
that.
I think
So-
when we put as detailed in the agenda item, that's what we typically use, and that's the way we do this.
I would be happy to ask our school attorney to give us his general interpretation of the language here versus the language in our governance manual. I realize ultimately it's the board's decision, but I don't see how you can interpret the language we have here as a may. There's no equivocation in that language. It's not shall. it's
Mr.
not
Foster, you may have a
must.
moment. You don't have to answer that right now if you would like a moment, and I can go on to other board members, or if you're prepared.
No, I'll take the moment,
Yes.
Madam Chairman. Thank
Yes, sir. Yes, Ms. Evans, you are next on the go back list.
Thank you. I am a little surprised by this conversation. I wrote this language. So I can tell you what the intention was, with Mr. Moon's help and Ms. Goddard's help. And it was not intended to be anything, as Mrs. Smith said, it was intended to be a limit, an actual limit. There was not intended to be wiggle room. Now, it's a very modest limit. It is an extremely modest limit, but it wasn't supposed to be wiggle room in there. And so that certainly was the intention. It is the same language that we considered at our work session on March 16th. It's what we discussed on March 16th. So I'm a little surprised that people read shall differently than may. I don't read shall differently than may in this context. If people have more comfort with the word shall, we can certainly change it to the word shall, because that was the intention. It wasn't intended to have wiggle room. Again, it's a very modest limit, but it is intended to be an actual limit.
And Madam Chair, if I could continue.
Yes, Mr. Storck.
I'm not an attorney and I don't want to be an attorney, but I know that the word may and shall have two very distinct meaning in law, and may is not shall, or vice versa. So I want to point out to the board that the language in here doesn't have wiggle room, and I think Ms. Evans just pointed that out. That wasn't her intent either. So I don't have a problem. I want this motion to reflect what people think it does, and right now it's not. There's no equivocation in it. If you vote for this, you're not allowed to run more than twice unless we change this policy at some future
I
date.
get that. What we might do is I'm going to have everybody else do this, and we may take a brief recess at that point to allow our attorney to further develop his opinion at this point.
Thank you, Madam
I have Ms. Schultz and Ms. McLaughlin.
Just very briefly, regardless of what the estimable Mr. Foster does with magic language machinations over there, we're not tying any future board to anything ever, because any future board could undo this at any time. So what we're saying is, if at this point in time, we are putting our mark and our stamp on and sending a message to future boards that this was the will of the board at the time, and if a will of the board at the future wants to change it, they're going to bring back the estimable Mr. Foster to do a little bit of magic language changing again, and you can undo it just as fast as you can do it. So my comments were really around whether the stamp and the mark of the will of this board is demonstrable enough, and whether I think the actions will follow the intent here. I would have preferred if it was 2 years total, because then you get to true shared leadership, and it doesn't do that. So that's where I'm worried that now we've spent even more time on something that doesn't necessarily yield anything beneficial in the end. So I'm a little bit more weary than when I started.
All right. I think.
Ms. McLaughlin, you're on.
Okay. For our esteemed general counsel, I think I can make this easier for you. Mr. Foster, I think I can make this really easy. Maybe it's because I'm married to an attorney, so I'm used to having this kind of conversation. We have our motion, and that's what we're going to prove. When I look at this is not complex. It's any big deal. It was just administrative error. If you look at the language, when it says, if you pass this motion, then here's the language you're going to have in your governance manual, and that's the translation where the error happened, where it was authored as the may. And since the board is saying, here's our motion, we want it to be affirmed that there is a limit. If we just go ahead and vote on this thing, can't the language that's going into the governance manual, that's not part of what we're voting on. We're voting on just this motion. And then it's just administrative cleanup of that language. I mean, technically, that's what happened here. So if we take a recess because we just need to, people want to vote on the motion plus the language that's up above and listed, that's really the big question, because I think it's pretty clear what the motion's supposed to be. It's just a matter of that the governance manual language that it was supposed to be drawn from doesn't accurately reflect that.
Mr. Foster, would you like to speak?
Yeah, I would. I think that as the board has discussed, there is a significant legal difference between the term may and the term shall. Okay, you all understand that based on your discussion this evening. And so my recommendation to you is that you should, I think, amend the language, depending on what you want to do, to have the phrase either may serve or shall serve. And that's your decision to make. But I think that I would recommend, Madam Chairman, that you entertain a motion to make such an amendment.
Thank you, Thank you, Mr. Foster. I will call on Ms. Smith as I saw her hand first. Ms. Smith, do you have an amendment?
I move that we strike the word may and insert the word shall. So the sentence would read, a school board member shall serve no more than 2 years as chair during a 4-year school board term. Thank you.
And there's 2 sentences. Do you want to add
a
it
school
there
board
as well?
member, and strike the second may to make that shall. A school board member shall serve no more than 2 years as vice chair during a 4-year school board term. Thank you.
Do I have a second? Seconded by Ms. Evans. So,
Call the question.
call the question. All right, all right. So,
We have to vote on call.
we have to vote on, okay, yes, thank you. I love my help with the Roberts rules. Okay, I've been asked to call the question. All those in favor, do I need a second to call the question? Mr. Valkov, a second that. All those in favor? Okay, that was Moon, Reed, Hynes, Smith, Darnat, Koufax, Velkov, McLaughlin, Evans, Schultz. All those opposed? Mr. Storck. Mr. Storck with Ms. Strauss away from the table. So the question has been called. And we have a new...
Don't we have to vote on the amendment?
We have to vote on the amendment next. All right, so the amendment has been made to, I don't have anything back there, but strike the words in the second part of what's detailed in the agenda item, the 2 mays to shalls. So agenda item 2 under Section 2 would read, a school board member shall serve no more than 2 years as the chair during the school board term, and a school board member shall serve no more than 2 years as vice chair during the 4-year term. All right, now, were there all those in favor? Yes, all those in favor of that. All right, that vote is unanimous. Yes, with Janie away from the table. And now we can have discussion on the language that is written with a change in that language. So let's go forward. Mr. Moon.
Call for the question.
Second.
Second.
All right, here we go. Okay. Okay, how many people? Okay, call the question. All of those in favor of calling the question? Moon, Reed, Hynes, Smith, Darnat, Koufax, Velkov, McLaughlin, Evans, Schultz. Those opposed? Mr. Storck with Janie away from the table. All right. So now what we have is we have the motion that is, I move that the school board approve term limits for board members serving in the chair or vice chair position as follows. No more than 2 years as the chair during a 4-year term, and no more than 2 years as vice chair during a 4-year term, as detailed in the agenda item, which we just changed, and update the strategic governance manual accordingly. All those in favor of this? Moon, Reed, Hynes, McLaughlin, Strauss, Evans, and Schultz. Those opposed? Smith, Darnat, Koufax, Velkov, Storck, and there's nobody left to abstain. That motion passes. Next, we go to 4.04. This portion of the meeting is where the board will confirm any action regarding issues that were discussed in the closed meeting. These issues may include action taken regarding student disciplinary matters. Board members have discussed each individual case, and at this time will make several motions to confirm the recommended action. I call on Ms. Evans for a motion.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move to grant in part the school reassignment appeal of a student who distributed an imitation-controlled substance at school and modify the disciplinary decision of the division superintendent.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Hynes. All those in favor? Moon, Reed, Hynes, Darnat, Koufax, Storck, and Evans. Opposed? Smith, Velkov, Strauss. Abstentions? McLaughlin and Schultz. That motion passes. I again call on Ms. Evans.
I move to deny the school reassignment appeal of a student who threatened another student at school and to confirm the disciplinary decision of the division superintendent.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Hynes. All those in favor? Moon, Reed, Hynes, Smith, Darnat, Koufax, Velkov, McLaughlin, Strauss, Evans, Storck, I'm sorry, Mr. Storck. Opposed? Abstain? Ms. Schultz? That motion passes. And I now call on Mr. Storck for a motion.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move that prior to June 15th, 2015, the instructional personnel identified in closed session be notified that their contracts will not be renewed. 1, those who hold a provisional or conditional license expiring 2015 or earlier. 2, those who hold a provisional or conditional license expiring 2016 and 2017. 3, those with incomplete license data. 4, those missing or failing Praxis 2. 5, those with license pending with VDOE and missing or failing Praxis 2. 6, those with provisional license that expired prior to 2015. 7, those on a 1-year hiring agreement.
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Smith. All those in favor? Moon, Reed, Smith, Darnat, Koufax, Velkov, McLaughlin, Storck, Strauss, Evans. Abstentions? Ms. Schultz opposed? I'm sorry I did that, but. And we have Ms. Hynes away from the table. That motion passes. Next, we move on to our consent agenda. Our adopted rules of parliamentary procedure, Robert's Rules, provide a consent agenda listing several items for approval by the board by a single motion. Many items listed have gone through board review, and documentation has been provided to all board members and the public in advance. Items may be removed from the consent agenda at the request of any board member prior to the meeting. 5.01, approve the minutes of the April 9th, 2015 regular school board meeting. 5.02, confirm the separations for the period beginning March 1st, 2015 and ending March 31st, 2015 as detailed in the agenda item. 5.03, confirm the appointments and separations for the period beginning January 1st, 2015 and ending March 31st, 2015 as detailed in the agenda item. 5.04, approve the Career and Technical Education Management System for the 2015-2016 application for career and technical education funds. 5.05, approved the 2015-2016 annual special education plan, section 611 Part B, grant funding application, and Section 619, Part B, preschool grant funding application as detailed in the agenda item. 5.06, adopt policy 2202, admissions, residency, and attendance eligibility for enrollment as described in the agenda item. 5.07, authorize the division superintendent and the assistant superintendent, Department of Facilities and Transportation Services, either of whom may act without the other, to take all actions necessary and appropriate in consultation with legal counsel for the school division to pursue approval of proffered condition amendment application number PCA 76-M-007-02, including negotiating, signing, and submitting the final proffer statement and any other documents on behalf of the school board. Are there any objections to approving the consent agenda? Seeing and hearing none, the consent agenda is approved. I'm just waiting for my computer. The following are new business items. There will not be a vote tonight on these items, but action is scheduled at a future meeting. 6.01, adopt Regulation 2601.29P, student rights and responsibilities as detailed in the agenda item. 6.02, award the contract for the automatic temperature control system replacement at Belvedere Elementary School to the lowest responsive and responsible bidder, and authorize the division superintendent or the assistant superintendent of facilities and transportation services to execute and administer the contract on behalf of the school board. 6.03, award a contract for installation of a synthetic turf fields at Annandale High School and Hayfield Secondary School to the lowest responsive and responsible bidder, and authorize the division superintendent or the assistant superintendent of facilities and transportation services to execute and administer the contract on behalf of the school board. 6.04, award a contract for the installation of synthetic turf fields at South County High School and Stewart High School to the lowest responsive and responsible bidder, and authorize the division superintendent or the assistant superintendent of facilities and transportation services to execute and administer the contract on behalf of the school board. I wanted to let you know that currently the school board and the Board of Supervisors and the Park Authority are working with the Fairfax County Health Department on recent conditions raised regarding synthetic turf fields. FCPS will continue to work collaboratively with the Board of Supervisors and the Park Authority, assessing the latest information related to synthetic turf fields. We will continue to monitor and evaluate current information related to the safety of synthetic turf fields, and I also plan to send a letter to Chairman Bulova requesting that the Turf Task Force be reconvened. Next, moving on to item 6.05, adopt the resolution requesting that the Board of Supervisors to approve to take all necessary and appropriate action to place on the ballot for the November 2015 general election a school bond referendum in the amount of $310 million as detailed in the agenda item. And 6.06, adopt policy 1450, non-discrimination, as detailed in the agenda item. Next, we move on to superintendent matters. Dr. Garza.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. I'm very pleased tonight to report that Kimberly Scott, an English teacher at Franklin Middle School, has been named the FCPS 2015 Teacher of the Year. Ms. Scott will represent FCPS in Virginia's Teacher of the Year competition, and the winner will be announced in the fall of 2015. Mrs. Scott has also won the Washington Post Agnes Myers Outstanding Teacher Award for Educational Excellence, which is presented annually to a teacher from each school division in the Washington metropolitan area. Mrs. Scott is known for a dynamic, engaging classroom where students are anxious to spend as much time as possible in her class. She has been known to stand on a chair when she has something important to say, and to use stories, cartoons, and case studies, including our own struggles with learning, to support and engage students. Ms. Smith and a number of leadership team and I had the opportunity to surprise Ms. Scott in her classroom, and it's no doubt it was obvious why she was chosen to represent FCPS teachers in this way. She was just an extraordinary teacher and person. I also am pleased to report that William Bates, who has served as principal at Herndon High School since 2009, and has worked for Fairfax County Public Schools for 15 years, has been named the FCPS 2015 Principal of the Year and is recipient of the Washington Post Distinguished Educational Leadership Award. We're very proud of William Bates, and everyone around the table knows him well. William Bates is known for his philosophy: we are educators because we are hopeologists. Our world needs more hopeologists because children without hope become children without a future. Putting that philosophy into practice, Mr. Bates has developed a mission for Herndon High that states all Hornets are capable of success, no exceptions. This statement drives everything at Herndon High School, from the development of a professional learning community focused on student achievement via professional development for teachers, to the establishment of a curriculum support specialist who works with the instructional and assessment coaches to manage the school-wide data monitoring system. And I've also had the opportunity to spend some quality time at Herndon High School, and what wonderful things they have going on at his school. And really, they're having a major and very significant positive effect over their entire pyramid. So it's really very affirming and exciting to see. Both William Bates and Kimberly Scott will be honored, along with the other school divisions, teachers, and principals of the year, at a ceremony next month at the Washington Post. And we're so proud of these two wonderful educators, and we're very, very pleased and proud they're a part of FCPS. On other news, along with many FCPS staff, board members, other community supporters, I attended the pre-markup at the Board of Supervisors last week. And we were disappointed yet again that the supervisors did not fully fund our very reasonable and very pragmatic budget. We know that even though they do not pass a budget until next week, we've definitely been told it's essentially a done deal, and it's quite discouraging and disappointing. But I do want to take this moment to recognize our many parents, Fairfax County citizens, and our FCPS employees who became actively engaged in the process and who expressed their support of our budget request. We thank each and every one of them for championing for our schools and for championing for our children. For those who may not have engaged yet, we need you. Our children and our schools are very much at risk after years of consecutive cuts since 2008, and almost $500 million in reduction in terms of operating cost. Consistent and chronically underfunded school systems are unable to hang on to excellence. But not only are our schools and our students at risk, our local economy and the overall quality of our community and our neighborhoods is also at risk, because they're also connected to the vibrance and the quality of our public schools. So we ask for our community to weigh in. The future is, it's very important for them to weigh in, be a part of helping us create solutions to the problem that faces us and how we sustain and support our great schools into the future. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Dr. Garza. Next on our agenda is board reports, and I will call on Ms. Evans first to give us reports of governance from March 9th, March 16th, and April 20th.
Thank you very much. On March 9th and 16th, we did work on the leadership succession items that we just approved. We discussed the plans for the then upcoming April 11th retreat, as well as started planning on for our July retreat. At the March 16th work session with the full board, we did reach consensus also on the way we would do the main budget motion for the approved budget in May. That will be crafted as an omnibus motion by the budget chair and vice chair after presentation of the superintendent's recommendation and a budget work session to gauge school board member majority support. Staff is going to bring back language about that process to us. At the April 20th Governance Committee meeting, we continued to work on our July retreat. We have tentatively decided to try to do it all in one day rather than a day and a half. We are revisiting with school board members which Saturday works best for them, and Mrs. Goddard has sent out something to board members asking which of 3 Saturdays works best. So we will tally that and get back to board members on what date we feel it works best. We are going to recommend a streamlined self-evaluation, or at least we've tentatively decided this, to have a streamlined self-evaluation based on themes from last year, and we will be bringing recommendations on that retreat to a future work session.
Thank you. Ms. Schultz, the Public Engagement Committee meeting on April 13th.
I actually think I have March 11th as well.
All right.
I don't want to take more time, but I do believe that we have a report out. So we had both a PC, a Public Engagement Committee meeting on March 11th and on April 13th. On March 11th, we had a number of requests to the staff for information about potentially recommending postponing the Education Summit that the board has been holding each fall. Ultimately, at the April 13th PC meeting, we did agree to recommend to the board, and the board agreed that with the amount of work that is on our staff and with the number of other summits like the Teen Wellness Summit, Mental Health Summit, and the Special Education Conference, that we would this fall postpone the Education Conference. In addition, we had looked at submitting a nomination for a partnership award with the Fairfax County Chamber of Commerce. There were other awards that were put forward to VSBA on behalf of the board. We requested a straw man of the budget communications plan. That did not turn out too well for us, did it, Dr. Garza? Thanks, Board of Supervisors. We do look forward to additional infographics and type of things in the future to help the public understand better some of our budgetary needs and some of our constraints. On our April 13th PC meeting, we did have a discussion around our blueprint for change, our communications plan, around our later start times. We still are in a little bit of a wait mode for some of the transportation schedules that are going to come out, but the bell schedules did get rolled out effectively. There were some reviews by members of the Public Engagement Committee along with members of the senior staff, and I think that in general has gone very well. We've had very little communication back as a result of that rollout and that deliberative effort that Mr. Guilfoyle came on at the last minute. And we have an update to our back to school night videos on our future budget and our budget communications plan, and our back to school night videos on our next agenda, where we're going to be making some recommendations as we head into a busy election season.
All right, thank you. I call on Ms. Smith to talk about the April 13th work session.
So Mrs. Strauss and I were meeting managers for 3 of the sessions. One was special services, where we did the SR&R, and it's new business tonight. There'll be action on the SR&R on May 7th. Then we had a redo again about the renovation queue, and the board decided that we are going to have another work session and look at the criteria for evaluating the schools by December of 2015. So there'll be a work session scheduled sometime in the fall. And then after, there'll be an engineering firm to evaluate the schools, but the board wanted to know about the difference in cost between evaluating 11 schools or more of a list of the schools. So that work continues. And then we had a presentation about Project Momentum, it's called, to help our neediest schools. And all of that information is online for the public to see. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. And Mr. Moon, the audit portion of that meeting.
Thank you, Madam Chair. At the audit portion of the work session, we began discussing FY 2016 audit plan. We are, board members will have an opportunity to provide individual inputs for audit committee to deliberate and present a recommendation to the full board. Full board will have an opportunity to discuss that on July 13th with the eventual adoption on July 23rd. The second part of audit committee audit work session was presentation of a report of a math curriculum review. And we had good discussion, and there were several good recommendations from staff for our consideration and adoption.
Thank you, Mr. Moon. And that is it for tonight on reports. I will go to board matters, and I will start with Ms. Schultz tonight.
It's a good thing I'm ready. So I've had a busy few weeks. I know we're passing, whether it's day or week, administrative personnel day. And certainly there are a lot of administrative personnel who help support the board. Second to none is the school board office member who helps me, Melissa Fields. And my thanks to her, because I've had 2 citizen town halls, one at Sangster Elementary and one at Silverbrook Elementary this week, at which she attended both evening meetings. And in addition, last week I had an excellent student town hall at South County High School. It's absolutely terrific, maybe one of the largest student town halls I've done. It's my last one for this school year as we get ready to head into graduation season, but I think that makes 14, and truly an amazing experience. And I thank all hundreds and hundreds of students with whom I've had the opportunity to meet at all the high schools for sharing your time with me, and for the teachers and administrators for giving me the opportunity to listen to the student voice. Also to all of the citizens who turned out for the 2 citizen town halls. I have one left in May. There'll be another kit message that goes out. That one will be at Willow Springs, and that will make 4 this spring, and that's just an opportunity to dialogue with members of the public. In addition, I had another opportunity, I believe this is my 3rd, to meet with members of the Chinese and Asian communities, and I'm truly very grateful. That was the most robust dialogue I've had so far on issues around citizenship and how local government works, and why it's important to be registered to vote, and education policy. So I thank those members from the bottom of my heart for giving me the opportunity. And I'm also thankful to Steve Greenberg from FCFT to coming out to one of my citizen town halls. This weekend I'll be at the 6th grade all-county chorus. Very much look forward to that. And I think that wraps me up. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Evans.
Yes, first of all, I very much want to welcome officially Principal Penny Gross to Stewart High School. She has done a wonderful job at Glasgow Middle School as the principal there, as well as welcoming Sean DeRose as our new acting principal at Glasgow Middle School. I'm very enthusiastic and confident about these choices. Ms. Gross and Mr. DeRose are wonderful leaders, and they will do a terrific job at these 2 schools. I've been very happy to work with them in their previous roles at Stewart High School in Glasgow, and I'm delighted to be continuing to work with them in their new roles. This is a wonderful opportunity for renewed energy and growth at both Stewart High School in the Stewart High School pyramid. We had an excellent meeting last night at Stewart High School. We nearly filled an auditorium with community members, parents, teachers, administrators, students, to discuss these leadership changes at Stewart and Glasgow Middle School. I want to thank Dr. Garza for leading the conversation last night, and for Dr. Zulawaga, Region 2 Assistant Superintendent, for being there and outlining a number of the plans for for the Stewart Pyramid as well as, of course, Principal Gross and Acting Principal Sean DeRose were there answering questions about their visions too. Thank you, Mr. Moon, for attending as well. And to the Stewart PTSA President, Ginger Hayes, and Glasgow PTA President, Jill Barris, who put this conversation together in very short order, and for all the people who got the word out from the KIT messages and the parent liaisons and the robocalls that went out. It was really wonderfully attended. I also wanted to mention a celebration that we had last night with a partnership that we have with the Bailey's Crossroads Rotary Club, which they have been very instrumental in helping the Stewart Pyramid in a variety of ways. And so they took the opportunity last night to talk about some contributions that they are going to be making to Stewart, Glasgow, Bailey's Elementary School, and Keys Center that totaled more than $25,000. So we had a ceremonial check passing last night, and I want to thank the Rotary and President Harry Henderson for all of their continuing work. This is just one of their many contributions to the Stewart High School Pyramid. Secondly, because I'm going to be out of town, unfortunately, on May 7th, unfortunately missing that school board meeting, I did want to take a minute to address the issue that we've been getting so many emails on this week regarding adding gender identity to our non-discrimination policy. There seems to be a great deal, unfortunately, of misunderstanding and misinformation about what this is going to mean. I believe that it is important to have compassion and understanding for all of our students. And I believe it would be wrong to discriminate against children based on gender identity. This motion I see as a simple motion of non-discrimination. And we certainly heard from people with concerns, and we need to take their concerns seriously. We are going to be, I understand from Dr. Garza, we are going to be hiring a consultant to take a look at just how certain elements of this would play out, and I support doing so. At the same time, we've heard from parents who are asking us to consider very carefully the struggles that their children have when they are dealing with gender identity issues, and I think that we need to have compassion for all children. I think we need to make our decisions based on facts and best practices rather than unsubstantiated assumptions. So I would, if I were here, I would support that motion.
Ms. Strauss.
Thank you. This morning I attended the Herndon High School breakfast honoring the most improved students. And again, we are so thrilled at Herndon High School that William Bates is our Principal of the Year. And of course, congratulating him again this morning. And reminding that when we recognize our Principals of the Year, it's not just the principal, it's the entire school. Because it means that the entire school is working well for students and for children. And it is so apparent at that school. Every year they honor young people who have overcome unusual challenges, and we honored probably close to 100 kids. They are nominated by their counselors, by their teachers, for a variety of challenges. They've pulled their grades up, they've overcome sometimes very difficult situations in their personal lives or at home. And the cafeteria is filled with proud family members, grandparents, siblings, and that these young people have done themselves proud. So that at Herndon we celebrate success, not just academic success or athletic success, but we just recognize the success of teenagers living through sometimes difficult challenges because they are teenagers. It's just a wonderful, wonderful morning. They do this every year, and I would recommend other schools doing it. I also want to congratulate Langley High School. We had Case Day last year, and Mr. Lateef was there, and it's a mock Supreme Court trial. The students do a wonderful job. They prepare themselves as the attorneys, and there is a full day of discussions and panel discussions about the laws that were debated that day, and the Supreme Court, I believe, will be hearing that case. It has been heard, so we'll find out if they came to the same conclusion that we, Supreme Court justices.
And I believe you've always been right when it comes to what the Supreme Court has said.
Yes, I have. Thank you. I've been a justice for many years, but the students are wonderful. I was at the Haycock PTA last week. Mr. Sneed and I were at the McLean Citizens Association discussing the impact of Tyson's Corners on our schools, and they were very interested, the citizens, in coming to visit Bailey's. We reassured them that we can construct or renovate an urban elementary school, so they would like to see Bailey's, and we'll be working to set up a tour. They are very concerned about the growth in Tyson's because of Silver Line. Our Safe Community Coalition met last night to talk again about our programs for next year for students. There's a great deal of ongoing continued concern about adolescent stress and the acknowledgement that mindfulness and yoga and various other ways to help students relax their minds a little bit and disperse some of the tension, that it has all been a very positive experience. This is an excellent, excellent community organization that sponsors a lot of our Ethics Day forums and opportunities for our older students to go into our schools to work with our younger students to help them be successful. Tomorrow will be at Forestville Elementary School, and this weekend we have the 6th grade choral concert, which should be lots of fun. And of course, it's high season for theater. Almost all of it. This is the whole spring season for our public schools, our private schools. I was even out at Flint Hill Private School the other day. So if you have nothing to do on the weekend, you have 2 or 3 plays to choose from, and I highly recommend it. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Storck.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I first off wanted to thank staff for the incredible amount of work that they've put into our regional facilities, capital improvement programs, as well as the program discussions that we've had. We've had 4 meetings over the last really month that they have worked very hard. In particular, Mr. Annette Koufax and I have been there, and I appreciate our work together on that, as well as want to thank Ms. Tyler, Mr. Plattenberg, and Mr. Sneed in particular, who have spent a lot of time, effort to put this together. I think the meetings overall were very successful in bringing parents and community members in to hear and understand the kinds of options that we have in front of us and the kinds of decisions that we're going to be needing to make, not only about facilities, but future boundary or program changes that will influence all of those. So again, a lot of work and I think a lot of positive results, and I think the community gave us a lot of great views and perspectives as well as concerns that we needed to take into consideration. So I thank you all. On this coming Saturday, we have something called Springfest Fairfax 2015. It's held at the Workhouse Arts Center, which is in Lorton on the Workhouse Way, which is down Route 123. There'll be over 5,000 children and adults attending a fun and educational celebration of the natural environment. And there's artwork that's themed to that, as well as games for all, face painting, pony rides, wildlife shows, live entertainment, plant sales. Again, it's a celebration of being outdoors, and it's also a celebration of at least a piece of Mount Vernon District, and would welcome any and all to come. It should be a wonderful event. And my absolute favorite event of the year is this Saturday at 3 o'clock at Mount Vernon High School. We have the all-county 6th grade chorus. Those of you who have not been before, this is absolutely your chance to feel like you've died and gone to heaven, at least for a little while, and hopefully you'll stay there. But if not, then you'll hopefully get a chance to understand really how wonderfully well our 6th graders sing, and how really some of the conductors, how they bring the best of our children and students out. So the public is of course invited. I would get there early because there's usually large crowds and it's difficult to find a seat, but it is absolutely one of the best events of the year. 3 o'clock this Saturday. I'm looking forward to being there. Thank you.
Mr. Storck, actually traffic is also very heavy on Route 1 whenever we have a 6th grade all county, so come earlier than usual.
Absolutely, Mr. Moon. It is the event of the year for most of us, and I think if you go, you will understand why. Thank you.
Ms. McLaughlin.
I just wanted to highlight a few things. First of all, I really enjoyed the opportunity to visit Fairfax County's partnership with the Alternative House, and that is a absolutely wonderful program for at-risk students, teenagers who need shelter and care. And so I was able to tour one of the homes that they run, and look forward to visiting some of their other after-school programs they have in Bailey's Crossroads. But was just extremely impressed with, once again, the things that Fairfax County does as a whole to helping those in need in our community. I also had a wonderful visit with our county social workers, our Fairfax County Public Schools social workers. They had a countywide in-service day last Friday, and I want to thank the coordinator, Mary Jo Davis, who invited me to spend an hour and a half speaking to all the social workers about the great things that we're doing here in the county to help with educating the whole child. There was lively discussion about the new SOSAs in the building, and also talking about things related to student stress and academic homework loads, things like that. Very interesting discussion about AP courses and the infringement on student curriculum, and how that's also added to stress and pressure for students. I also enjoyed this past Sunday being invited to visit the Hope Chinese School, which is in Annandale. They have a program they run out of Annandale High School, and so it was interesting to get a chance to talk with their community about their academic interests and concerns. And really wanted to make sure I got a chance to spotlight that a week from Saturday, Frost Middle School is going to be celebrating their 50th anniversary. And so they will be holding festivities in an open house there Saturday, May 2nd. I'm very excited to go be a part of the festivities, since my husband and my 3 boys are all now officially alums of the school, and it's, I know, a very exciting time for them as well. This Wednesday, I was able to visit with Woodson High School Student Services and talk about the great things that they're doing with the guidance counseling staff to help students be successful. And tomorrow morning, I will be joining Frost Middle School for their biannual review of their student services, and they're very excited that they were named among the national counseling services in the country for RAMP and their incredible programs that they're doing for students. So exciting week with what's going on with our schools, and also looking forward to still getting out to some of my elementary schools in the district. So thanks.
Mr. Velkoff?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Monday, I represented FCPS at the Northeast Region meeting of the Virginia School Board Association, and there was an art competition, and I took our entries, one each from elementary school, middle school, and high school. And I'm pleased to report that in the middle school event, our student was the first place winner. That's Sharon Park at Stone Middle School. And in the high school category, the second place went to Choi Shin A at McLean High School. And lest you be concerned that we had no success in the elementary area, I should mention that I brought back last year's first place in the elementary category. The first place winners go on display, I believe, down in Richmond in the Capitol, or in the governor's office, or VSB. They kind of tour around in Richmond, I believe.
Ms. Smith? Ms. Hynes?
Thank you. I just wanted to echo the congratulations to Mr. Bates at Herndon High School. I think that's so exciting. You know, the job of high school principal, I think, is probably one of the hardest jobs in the world. And to be recognized as a leader among leaders is really great. And I have also seen some of the work that he's done there. The Kids at Hope program, I understand it's a twist on the term kids at risk. So they have figured out how to turn kids at risk into kids at hope. And my colleague, Mrs. Strauss, described very well the programs that they have there. So good job, Mr. Bates. Congratulations. Wanted to mention that an interfaith group in Vienna, the town of Vienna, has, for the last year and a half, been providing a great deal of support to Cunningham Park Elementary School and the families there. And one of their members has made a personal donation to Cunningham Park that will allow Cunningham Park to have a Young Scholar Summer program, which they would not have been able to have. And so I think that's great news. And I just wanted to give them a shout out. They're doing a lot of good work in Vienna. Happy Teacher Appreciation Week. Is this Teacher Appreciation Week? It is, right? I think, yes. And I'm sorry that the Board of Supervisors has once again made it difficult for us to support our teachers the way we want to, but we will keep fighting. I want to thank the fourth grade teachers and students at Hunters Woods Elementary School for their interactive museum. I was there last night. They acted out Virginia history, and I've taught fourth grade for years, and it's my favorite thing about teaching fourth grade is teaching the sweeping story of Virginia's history. And it was wonderful to see all the ways that those students presented Virginia's history with drama and with artwork, and Hunters Woods has the great Arts and Science Magnet program there, and the students and teachers really take advantage of all those resources. It was a lot of fun. They did a great job. I also want to thank the Title I District Advisory Council. I was at their last meeting for the year this past week, and this is a group of parent leaders from our Title I schools who get together and learn a lot about resources that are available to Title I parents and help to empower those parents. They go back to their schools and empower their parents to advocate for their students. And it is really, they're a great resource. I look forward to their advisory committee report, which will come to us next month. I want to thank Wolf Trap Elementary School PTA for inviting me to come meet with them last week, and also to thank the principal, Teresa Kaluki, there, who's doing a great job. We had a great conversation about large class sizes and the new regulations that are coming, and I'm looking forward to our work session on that because I did come away with some questions that they would like to have answered. But overall, it was a very good discussion. I appreciate the parents being so understanding and thoughtful. On Saturday, I will be at the Taste of Vienna at the Firehouse in Vienna. The town of Vienna is a great partner for our school system. It's a wonderful place to be a kid. I raised my own 2 kids there, and this is just one of the many things that go on in the town of Vienna. So if you have time on Saturday to sample some of the great food from the restaurants in Vienna, it starts at 11 in the morning and seems to go all day from what I can tell. So I'm looking forward to that. Finally, on a very sad note, Hunter Mill District Supervisor Kathy Hudgens' husband, Willie Hudgens, recently passed away unexpectedly. And it's a great loss to the community and, of course, a great loss to her family. There will be a service on Saturday at 1 p.m. at St. Thomas a Becket Church in Reston. It is open to the public. So if you knew Willie Hudgens or if you'd like to help share the story of his life, please join us.
Ms. Reed.
Thank you, Ms. Stern at Kofax. First, I wanted to thank the students at Fairhill Elementary. I had gone there to read on Read Across America Day, and they sent me a whole packet of letters and drawings, and it was just wonderful to receive that. So I wanted to say thank you, and I will be getting back to you, writing you back, and I hope I can come visit again. We had a wonderful talk about what our favorite books were, too, and so I'll look forward to coming back again soon. I wanted to share with my colleagues next steps on the budget. We have a work session coming up Monday evening, the 27th, and we'll be posting some material, I believe, tomorrow. So make sure you look for that and read up. It basically is focusing now on options for closing our $7.6 million gap for the FY16 budget. The Board of Supervisors will formally adopt their budget on the 28th. New business on our approved budget is May 7th. Public hearing, May 12th. Work session, May 14th, and 21st, we adopt it. And July 1st, of course, starts the new fiscal year. So there'll be a quiz on those dates later. Also, I wanted to let you know that next week I'm looking forward to attending the Support Services Employees Advisory Council meeting. I believe the first one we were snowed out. But this is our bus drivers and attendants, the central office clerical and technical, food service, custodial, and plant operations folks. So I'm very much looking forward to sitting down and talking to them. And little known fact, my mother for a while was a food service worker when I was in school. So I'll look forward to talking to them and really hearing what their issues and concerns are. So I appreciate the invitation. And last but not least, I wanted to do a shout out to Kathy Partlow, my executive administrative assistant. And not only is it Appreciation Week, but for her it's wedding week, and her daughter gets married this weekend. And so I just wanted to say, thinking about you, and thank you for everything you do, Kathy.
Mr. Moon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm not going to list everything that I will be doing for the next 2 weeks, but just in case you don't know this already, I'll be at the Kilmer Middle School at 7 o'clock tomorrow for performance of Legally Blonde Junior, among other reasons that I'm looking forward to seeing the act of Mr. Ryan McGalvin's father, who is an English teacher there. So if you want to join me, please come on.
Thank you all. And yes, I do want to mention that it is Administrative Professionals Week. Thank you to my administrative professional and the school board office, Ms. Joanne Kinney. You are a lifesaver each and every day, and I thank you for your support and assistance. And thank you to all the ladies in our office. You are an amazing group of people. We are a challenging bunch to work for, but you treat us with kid gloves and make us look good every day. So thank you all for that. And with that, this meeting is adjourned.